Construction grinding to a halt. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my afternoon stein of coffee, and I thought we would have a look at this article from the ABC about building projects grinding to a halt because of insurance and cladding issues. Now, I have discussed this several months ago with a good friend of mine and my insurance broker, Grant Mason, and I will spin that off because it was at the back of another video I did. I'll spin that off as a separate video for you all to watch, just to get the perspective from an insurance broker and the actual industry here, because it's to do with the professional indemnity insurance for building surveyors. And don't think that the building certification industry is the only one that has gone through something like this. My own profession, architects, there was a point where we couldn't get any insurance. So this tends to happen every now and then in different professions, because the insurance game, well, they're all about risk management, risk mitigation. They're never your friends. Don't think they're your friends, guys. They're like the banks. So let's have a read through this. Building projects halted as surveyors face rocketing insurance costs due to cladding crisis. And I spoke to some certifiers. I rang one up actually to get a quote for a project. And he's kind of stepped away from the certification part of it. He's saying, yeah, he's making more money just doing consultancy for accessibility, and the certification insurance rates has shot up. For a lot of them, it's increased significantly. I think from a couple of grand a year to over 10 grand a year, which is a lot, guys. Because certification, they're taking a lot of responsibility, and the fees they charge from jobs varies depending on how big it is or how complex it is. You're talking, about a grand up. So we're not talking super big money for some of these projects, even the smaller ones. The risk-reward ratio you gotta weigh up. I can understand and appreciate why some people are exiting this game with everything that's been going on. So Ryan O'Flynn is a man with a pool he isn't allowed to fill with water because his building surveyor can't sign off on the project. Oh, I feel sorry for this bloke. Literally a concrete hole in the ground. Mr. O'Flynn, a Melbourne plumber, is just one of many people who had construction projects underway when building surveyors ran into insurance problems earlier this year. Surveyors are having difficulty renewing their professional indemnity insurance because of the building industry's flammable cladding crisis. In Mr. O'Flynn's case, his safety fence needs to be inspected once it is complete so he can then fill the pool he has built at his home at Ascot Vale in Melbourne's northwest. Well, these fences we recently had to get my mother's all inspected and all the issues with them when she was selling a property. It's a requirement here in Queensland, and we had to make all these modifications to it, and I guarantee you the owner will come in and remove some of the modifications. We've fulfilled our obligations. But his surveyor has pulled out of the project. He may not be able to swim in summer. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, Mr. O'Flynn said. Well, get another surveyor, mate. There's lots of them around. It's not the end of the world. But then again, the surveyor I was on the phone to was based down in Melbourne now. Works up in Queensland too. Maybe they're just getting sick of it. He said he was told by a surveyor that they had to change insurance policies during his pool build. Their excuse was that their insurance premiums have gone up so much that they had to make cuts on what inspections they could actually insure, he said. Well, yeah, that they really have gone up that much, guys. It's crazy. It is ludicrous how high it has gone up for some of these businesses. So states search for workaround. Philip Watt has a building surveying business in nearby Essendon and has been in the industry for 40 years. Mate, he would have seen it all. Early this year, he had to shut down his work for 3 weeks because he couldn't get professional indemnity insurance without any exemptions, something insurers have been reluctant to offer surveyors. And if we see here, we'll just jump here to this video. I'm bringing up, this is from my own insurance, so non-conforming and non-compliant cladding exclusion. So they put exemptions into my professional indemnity insurance, which limits the, the problem is, even if something happens without my knowledge or without my direction, particularly on a design and construct project. I don't know if this change to my insurance policy could be used for them to get out of fulfilling their end of the bargain. It adds an unknown to it. I'm sure it'll be fine, and I trust Grant to have my back, but, we're talking lawyers here, guys. We're talking lawyers. We're talking insurance. Is it a good reputation industry there, people? Let me know. For Mr. Watt's clients, it caused all sorts of delays building their homes. They couldn't go past the mandatory inspection stage, so once they got to the end of the frame, they couldn't go any further, he said. In August, a ministerial order was issued in Victoria allowing surveyors to work with insurance even if it contained exclusions for non-compliant materials. So here the state is stepping in to take the responsibility. Similar moves were made in other states. While that allowed surveyors like Mr. Watt to return to work, it did not solve all of the profession's problems. Mr. Watt's insurance jumped by 800% in a single year when he filed a new policy. There you go, 800%, guys. And this is a big chunk for his business. Guaranteed. A surveyor or certifier, depending on where you are, it's a big chunk. He said it had been unusual for surveyors with small businesses to pay, it had been usual to pay about $10,000 a year for professional indemnity insurance, but many are now paying close to $100,000. And some of these are one-man bands. Think about that. There's another problem in this industry which they're not talking about in the building certification industry, and it is the aging of the workforce. A lot of the building certifiers are getting on in years, like our example in this article. Not taking any jabs at him, I'm getting on in years too. But they're getting an aging population. So if you're getting closer to retirement, you think, what, screw it, I'm not paying that much just to do what I can already do. To hell with it. $100,000 a year. Think how many jobs you'd have to work just to get through the books, just to pay for your insurance bill before you pay your other expenses, before you even make a profit on it. And that's before then you've got to think about tax that they're all taken off you in socialist Victoria. So just think about that, guys. So that's going to be another issue in this game. It's going to affect the construction industry. But, maybe this is why building approvals have dropped so much recently. What do you think, guys? If you're in the game, if you're in the building certification game, please let me know your opinions in the comments. How's it going? So Mr. Watt's new insurance also comes with extra risks. His excess has jumped from $10,000 to $100,000. Well, there you go. That is the biggest issue there, okay? This is the thing. Once I started, when they had the big crypto boom, guys, I started looking at investing and buying and trading and just looking at the risk-reward ratios of it. Then I started applying those same principles to architectural projects, and I was looking at a particular project from the Department of Education where they wanted me to put a fee proposal in. I would have to take on all these engineers under me, and I would have to take on all this responsibility, and it could have the risk-reward didn't add up. It just didn't add up. So there you go. Because, now, every job he's taking on, he's potentially risking in excess of $100,000. For small jobs, if they're only, a couple of $1,000. I don't think many businesses would sustain one or two claims at that amount. It would certainly knock you around, he said. Yeah, it would. It would. The higher excess and the associated risk are affecting the kinds of projects his business has taken on. There are some projects we have not quoted. Others we have been selective about how we have approached the project, because some projects are more risky than others, he said. Mr. Watt is now receiving calls from clients of nearby surveyors who have been forced to close. Well, yeah, I don't blame them. If your excess has gone up that high and you're taking on all the risk and liability, and just some of the recent court cases where the surveyors have kind of copped the lot, I don't blame them. You go, you know what, stuff it. Stuff it, not taking on the risk. He said many surveyors were unwilling to take on projects that had already started because they were worried they could be liable for the previous surveyor's works. Yes, this is a point. This is a thing when you're an architect, and often you'll see it where they will move from one architect to another architect on a project. And this is an issue with design and construct, where they'll get someone to document up to a certain stage and then they'll shift it over to another stage. Let me just jump on the sketch pad and do a diagram to explain the concept of what's happening here, or what could potentially happen. So we've got a project here, and this is the start date of a project, the start. And as you go through a project, you've got different milestones through time as you go until, you sell the project and people are living in it happily, that type of thing, and kids are playing and that type of stuff. So let's see, this is the first stage, and we'll call that, the concept. And what you have there, the outcome of that is a set of documents that are pretty sparse, and maybe some animations showing you what's happening, and some marketing material, so people can buy these apartments off the plan. So you've got people lining up, buying all these apartments, and you've just done it to this concept design stage. And this work was done, and it was, say, developers here, and he's got his own architect and team underneath him. Now, they've sold all the apartments, pretty much. They've sold them all. It's going well. It's all bought off the plan. Everyone's happy. And now you go on to the next stage of the project, where you need to go through, say, the town planning, and then construction, then finally, to the building and getting the builder on board. But say, what often happens is, after this point is reached, and we'll just grab another color here. After this point is reached here, they will take all this information they've done here, and then they will send it out to different teams to tender on. And often it can be the same team, sometimes it may not be, and they will put their different prices in to do the service and what they'll provide. So the thing is, say you're this guy here, this architect, you win the job, you're taking on all the responsibilities of this person, or every decision they've made up there. You need to review all of their work and everything they've done. Often it can be more expensive, changing teams, but it's a competitive environment, and this is what can actually happen. Now, from a building certification perspective, that is even much worse, because they are taking it on often later in a project. If it's already started construction, we can see here, if they've specified cladding, if work has been hidden and the certifier can't see it, that has a significant potential risk for them, a huge risk. I'm talking just about taking on someone else's concept design and all the risks you're taking on, let alone taking on a project that's already started construction. Just think about that. Think about the risk you would take on there. If you're in a trade, do you like taking on someone else's work? Do you like even taking on someone else's project in your job? Let us know in the comments, guys. So, and here we go. Oh, look, they're drawing attention to this, which is encouraging. No longer able to find professionals. The Australian Institute of Building Surveyors surveyed 400 building surveyors across the country about the effects of changes to professional indemnity insurance on their profession or on their business. The AIBS said 11% of building surveyors said they were no longer doing surveying work because of insurance issues. A further 9% of surveys reported they had reduced the scope of work they would provide. AIBS National President Troy Olds said the survey results revealed the scale of the industry's problem. It says we are in a crisis, and if 11% of building surveyors are no longer able to work, we're starting to see the building industry no longer able to find professionals, he said. The AIBS survey also found nearly 60% of building surveyors had increased their fees to cope with rising insurance costs. One surveyor wrote that he would be increasing his fees by 300% next year to cover additional insurance costs. Mr. Olds said he was aware of 2 firms that had taken on insurance premiums that they couldn't afford just to stay in business. He believes the trend will continue, and that's the issue. Because you also have to realize, guys, and if we jump back to my drawing here, we see that this is the time frame of the project. One thing you have to realize is going on to the future for what, 7 years plus? You have to have PI insurance. So I manage the time frame for all our projects. We need to still have insurance years after the projects are finished. Often we need to have the insurance longer than some of the projects exist in the retail environment. The mining projects, sure, we need to have it. They're going to be around 7 years, you hope. Some of the shops, they're not. It will get to the point where unrealistic insurance policies just won't be able to be taken, and people will have to make the final decision to close their offices, he said. It's harder to find a surveyor. Geelong builder Mark Little said it was becoming harder to find building surveyors. I'm constantly getting calls from building surveyors. From builders saying, "Who did you use as a building surveyor?" he said. It can create delays because of the volume getting pushed through such a small percentage of surveyors. Federal Minister for Industry Karen Andrews will meet with her state counterparts on today to discuss surveyor insurance. Queensland and New South Wales have been leading work on possible solutions, and this will be considered as a priority at Friday's Building Ministers Forum, Ms. Andrews said. Insurers also need to step up and meet their existing obligations and lift their exclusions on professional indemnity insurance to ensure certifiers are doing the right thing and continue to operate. Okay, we'll see if they'll do that. Both the insurers and the Victoria government are calling for a national approach to resolving the insurance crisis. Victorian Housing Minister Richard Wynne said the only way to get real change is to deal with it at a national level. Insurance Council of Australian spokesman Campbell Fuller said there was still a crisis of confidence in the building and construction sector. It would be irresponsible and impractical for insurers to reassess their risk appetites and their products, including cladding-related exclusions on professional indemnity cover based on promises and not nationally consistent action, he said. So there you go, guys. What do you think about this situation? Do you blame the certifiers who are just pulling back and managing their risk? I do not in the slightest. So guys, thank you for watching. If you like the channel, you want to help us produce more content, we have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have referral links with Amazon and eBay where we receive a small commission every time you make a purchase. It doesn't cost you a cent. We have a referral relationship with Independent Reserve. So if you're buying or trading cryptocurrency there, we will receive a portion of the fees they charge you. A great way to support the channel. And I like the fact that it's an Australian exchange and not one overseas. And finally, we have our own merch that we hand make at Heise Says on the other side of this house, pocket squares that you can get from our blog. Anyway, guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye for now.